of this first session, and we're going to be doing here together. First, I'm going to change your life by introducing you to the most powerful ways to improvement in yourself and in your company. Next, we want to preview all the material necessary in order to help almost any company with legitimate and honorable products double revenues. It's just not that hard to do. I've helped more companies double sales than anybody else, and I'm going to show you exactly how that's done. To get you committed to really following a program of constant improvement, that is a key. What most people do is they learn something at one of these events, they come back, they try it, it doesn't work right away, and they abandon it immediately. And the most profound results I have achieved with any client is by not abandoning it immediately. And it requires your vision as the owner of a company to stick to something that intellectually you know is going to work. It's just whether or not you stay with it long enough to make it work. So, okay, I'll give you some specific examples later. So to teach you to work on the business, not just in it, and again, I've said that already, and to be proactive versus reactive. How many people would say that they are mostly reactive in their business? Wow, only 10% of the room? Let me ask the question again. How many people would say they're mostly reactive in their business? Okay, that's better. Unless you just started a business, most executives function in a reactive mode, reacting and responding to the daily demand of the job. When executives are mostly proactive, their productivity and results increase exponentially. So we're going to spend some time on that. Proactive traits, problems get solved quickly. The company constantly finds better, smarter, and faster ways to do everything. And that's what makes a difference between a great entrepreneur and someone who's going to work in the business their whole lives. The owner and staff work on the business, making it better versus only working in it. So that's a key ingredient for all of you, is how do I work on the business and what do I work on and how do I make it better? So before we begin, I'm going to use the Bob Berry note-taking methodology for maximizing your learning curve. So take notes like you normally would. Then have a separate section where you put your action items. So you've got your notes that you're taking, and then you've got your action items. And you have a separate action list of things you're going to do as a result of what you've learned. And then in the last day, we're going to give you a sheet that helps you lay out your whole action plan. Dates, times, responsibilities, etc. And no, that's not Bob Berry. It's just another guy I didn't have a picture for. So, all right. So here, make a minimum commitment. Here's the real secret. Remember I talked about, what's the difference between people who really grow companies and people who really don't? The most key ingredient is that they just don't take a specific time to work on the business. So I say at least 1 hour per week that you're going to work on a business. Now me, if you were to get me involved in your company, I would spend only 1 hour a week working with the sales team and half an hour a week working with the CEO. And I'll talk to people and they'll say, well, gee, what can you do in only an hour a week? I'm like, you don't want me in your face more than an hour a week. Because all I do is work on the business, and that's what makes such a profound difference. I mean, I've literally doubled the sales, tripled the sales of companies just 1 hour a week. And it's going to be because of the first thing I told you is pig-headed determination to see the results that you want, and I won't let go. And it's about causing those incremental increases and improvements. So I'll give you an example. Paul, I'll use you because it's a great example, and it's not on any of the slides. But I work with Paul. We came up with a concept to try and get, he sells carpet cleaning and rug renovating, and he wanted to get his customers buying more frequently. So we went in there and we devised a script, and the sales rep used the script, and he came back after the first week. He was supposed to try it. So remember, I'm only on an hour a week with these guys. So I give the assignment, I give the work they're supposed to do, we get back on the phone, we put his top producer on it, we come back a week later and I say, so how did it go? What happened? He said, it didn't work. I said, it didn't work? He goes, yeah, I tried it and it didn't work. I said, well, how many people did you try it with? He said, I tried it with 10 people. And I said, then nobody bought it? He said, no, only 2 bought it. So in his mind, that didn't work. And right then and there, that idea would have died if I wasn't involved with the company, because I was like, wow, that's fantastic. It's a 20% response rate. And his challenge, just to use Paul as another example, and it's a great lesson here, when I first got involved with him, we said, well, how many customers do you have? He said, well, I got 30,000 customers. Now, if you're in carpet cleaning, that's huge. Most carpet cleaning guys, 2 guys in a truck. They're lucky if they have 300 customers. Hey, it's 30,000. He covers the whole eastern tri-state area around New York City. And basically his customers buy about once every 3 years. And I said, you ever try to get them to buy more often? And he says, yeah, we send them coupons and discounts, but pretty much they buy about once every 3 years. And, so you've got 30,000, you've got 10,000 buying every year. And I said, well, what would happen if we got those 30,000 customers buying twice a year? So do the math. You've got 30,000 customers buying once every 3 years, or 30,000 customers buying 6 times in 3 years. What's going to happen to your business? So after his hands stopped trembling, we created the gold service, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later but it was just a method of trying to get people to agree to having regular semi-annual cleanings. What percentage now, Paul, take advantage of that service? 40% of his total mark. So 40% buying 6 times in 3 years instead of once in 3 years. What's that going to do to your business? And how hard and how long do we work on that to get that working in your company? Couple? 5? Maybe 6? Hard work. Pig-headed discipline. And just 1 hour a week. But each week we took it a step further. So that's what I'm telling you guys. You can have profound results in your business if you just make the commitment that at least 1 hour a week you're going to spend working on the business. Just at least 1 hour a week. Now, this changes as you get into bigger companies. And what I found as I start working with bigger companies is it needs to be more than an hour a week. But smaller companies can even, and if you don't do an hour a week now, it can be profound. I mean, I'm just telling you, it's amazing. But the thing is, that hour a week, it's like I've gone to clients. I remember I had one very, very large client, and they said, well, we stopped having meetings because, they were mostly, bitch sessions. People were complaining. We really couldn't, be productive with them, so we just stopped having meetings. That's an example of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, meaning that they just didn't know how to run a good meeting. So what we're going to teach you is how to run a really good meeting. How to have a fantastic meeting that is designed specifically to improve your organization or any part of your performance. So dedicate 1 hour per week to improving the company or personal productivity, sales motivation, sales performance, marketing positioning, marketing strategies, marketing sales effectiveness. There's a whole bunch of things to work on right there. And my question to you is, how regularly and proactively do you work on those things now? Because that's what's going to make the difference. Again, my clients, you guys have to bear with me as I lay a foundation, but I am going to one-up all this stuff for you guys. The time management session will show you how to radically improve personal and company productivity on a daily basis. But for now, all I ask is that you make a commitment to working on the business on a consistent and regular basis and making some commitment to see an incremental improvement. What does incremental mean? It means that last week we were getting 2 out of 10 with the top producer, then we get everybody else to get to 2 to 10, and then we keep working until we get to 3 out of 10, then we keep working until we get to 4 out of 10, etc. Okay, self-study, one-on-one training, and team training. So this is other things we're going to cover is, various methods for self-study. How do you work on your business by yourself? How do you personally, if you want to create change in your one-person army, we had a few of you guys in here, what do you do in that 1 hour a week? It's not like you're sitting around with your staff, you're sitting there with yourself. But let me tell you, if you do that, it's profound. And most of you don't do it now. Everything we teach can be done one-on-one or even by yourself. So there's nothing here that's not applicable even one-on-one. However, the more, the better. So if you have more people, it becomes more dynamic. You get more impact. So why companies need to train, the best ways to train, getting down to it, and then maximizing your effort. This is what most companies do. It's what's called the tribal method of training. Information is passed from man to man by word of mouth. And that's literally like most companies. You go in there and they say, why don't you sit with Betty for a little while until you get the hang of what Betty does. And that's how most people get trained. And that's the worst training method you could possibly use. So the better your training, the better your everything. And that's what you'll see. So companies need to commit, no matter how small, to having consistent and regular training in the company because it's going to improve things. What's your future view? No training, office space available, constant training, your own skyscraper. The most successful companies are constantly training their staff, preparing them for challenges of the future. IBM versus Joe's computer place, and the founder of IBM said he would just go into work on the business. He did not work in the business. He worked on how. He didn't work in sales. He worked on how sales would be made. He didn't work in programming. He worked on how programming would be done. So how much work have you done on how the things that your company needs to do are perfected and made better? Your training today determines your success tomorrow. Again, I have a publishing background, and the best companies in publishing were constantly training their people. My company, we owned our market. When I got to that magazine owned by Charlie Munger, we were at 2% of market share. When I left, we were at 28% of market share, which was twice anybody else. I mean, and if you knew the circumstance, you would have said it could not be done. I know he thought it couldn't be done. So think and act like you want to be IBM. How proactive are you? What kind of systems and policies and procedures are you having in your company that makes all the difference? And that's the key ingredient. If you want to look at how a company gets beyond that $1 million mark, where you just dragged it there with pure passion, it's 3 words. Constant planning, then what are the procedures that we're going to follow, and then what are the policies that we're going to institute in our company to make them absolutely hardcore, policies. So, for example, most companies have no follow-up procedures. Sales call is made, salespeople make up what they do after that. And so in my companies that I run, the follow-up procedures are really well trodden and they're followed very closely. Everything works better with training, saves time. When offered the choice between trial and error method of training and the training and trial method, employees and bosses unanimously agree they want the training and trial method. Who would deny that? So deliberate and constant training radically improves employees' understanding of company objectives. Training helps set standards of performance. So if you're not having that, you can't expect to have people get to the next level, and that's why companies stay small, is because they don't think of what must it be like at Wells Fargo Bank where they're hiring 55 new tellers a week. Can they do the tribal method of training there? It's going to be very sloppy. So let's have you ask these questions. Everyone sings in harmony with training. So true or false? All employees perform each aspect of their job with a high degree of excellence and consistency. Say it out loud. True or false in your company? I can't hear you. Okay. Results are somewhat predictable because training and skills are consistent. Okay. Each supervisor would give a similar answer for each question or problem. Got a couple trues in the audience. Each employee would give a similar answer for each question or problem. Okay. Client treatment is similar no matter who the client deals with. Okay, a couple of truths in the audience. All staff members know what is considered good performance or attitude. Okay, that's all. Those are all training issues. If you want the finest company or department possible, you must have consistent and constant training. It makes a huge difference. So it sets the standards. All call-ins or walk-ins are handled with great care and in a consistent manner. So if you don't have those 3 Ps down, you're not going to have that. Or is employee activity intermittent, moody, or maybe even indifferent or rude because you have not set the standards through training? People need to know how things are going to be done. It makes all the difference. What's the ideal procedure for initial contact with the client? What are the 6 questions you will ask every single client? What are the 3 follow-up procedures that you will absolutely insist upon? I'm going to work through all these issues with you. I'm just trying to give you ideas to show you that those are setting standards in your company for how you're going to run the company better. More proactive training, the better the everything. The best way to manage any company, so I'm going to give you this, is a large company model, is to break the company down into manageable pieces. Now when I say large, like you get over $1 million or $2 million, you're already, for this group, what I would consider a larger company, where your issues are more diverse and you have a lot more things on your plate. Small company model is the same, but instead of guiding the staff to improve these areas, which we'll cover in a minute, you have to work on them yourself. So again, if you're a small company, still breaking down what are the impact areas. So that means what in your company, if you worked on improving it, would have a great impact on your company. So example, this is from another client. These are his 13 impact areas I forced him to think through. He's outside sales, inside telemarketing team. These are different impact areas within his company. Marketing activities, your customer service, your CRM, customer relationship management. Customer service in his case is they sell products, and so they need to make sure they're on top of all that. CRM is customer relationship management, different issue. Purchasing and suppliers. Again, this is a $50 million company that sells a lot of stuff. That's a huge impact area. And how many people for here is that an impact area? Shipping and receiving, again, in his case, can save a lot of money if he's got that well organized. He's got 6 plants in different locations. Inventory control, huge impact area for a $50 million company. And this is more than most of the people in this room will have to deal with, but I figure if I can give you 13 choices, then I'm going to have you pick which ones would be good for you. Personnel, technology, partner relationships with vendors. So they're a distributor, so they sell products from other companies. So these are, again, critical relationships. And partner relations with affiliates. Export sales, I was wrong, I thought it was 13. And then a California initiative. So he has an initiative to attack a new market. What initiatives do or should you have? So here's what I want you to do. Let's go to this thing that was just handed out to you. Part 1, first let's break down the company into impact areas. So on page 2, take a few minutes right now and I want you to break down. I'm giving you 15 examples from him. Let's think of what yours are, and then it says here, note, salespeople, admin staff, production or middle management, take the time to list your greatest impact areas if you perfected them. So that means that if you're in middle management or you're not a CEO, but you're sitting here in this room, what are your impact areas? What, if you perfected it, would have a massive impact on improving your department, your division, your area, the areas you're responsible for? So I'm going to give you like 5 minutes right now. Figure out what your impact areas are. Congratulations. You just worked on your business instead of in it. Okay, what did you learn? We've only just begun. This is just the beginning. Now let's show you how to fix the things you just outlined. Let's give you some processes, some ways of doing things, okay? Let's go with the larger company first. In the example I gave you, another client, he can't think now, after working with him, he can't think of a better way to spend his time now. What he does is he actually spends about 13 hours per week working on the business, improving some aspect of it. Again, in his case, since he's got a $50 million company and he's the CEO, what his job should be is to go and fix those 15 things that you're looking at down there. So now we're used to just react all the time, maybe have 1 meeting or 2 meetings. Now he has 13 meetings, all of them proactive, all of them to improve one of those 15 things that you see down there. This is how businesses get stuck. They stop working on the business, and that makes all the difference. And some of these areas get 15 minutes per week, some get an hour per week. The important ones, of course, get an hour per week, but his objective every week is to take each one of those areas and move it a step further. And that's where that pig-headed discipline is going to come in handy. And I have people come back to me a year after being in my seminar and say, you know what, Chet? The biggest lesson I learned from you was that pig-headed discipline. Just to have it literally pig-headed. And that's what makes someone who builds a really highly successful, well-structured organization that's highly profitable, is they will not let go of those impact areas, and they work on them until they get them working really well. Let's go further. So let's say you pinpointed 6 areas. You hold 6 meetings per week with those responsible for those areas. Again, it's a larger company model. So then that would mean if it's the web, I saw on a bunch of people's things, who's responsible for the web in your company? Who is the person or people that are responsible? So then you have a web meeting once a week. And again, it's once a week. Because you know what happens if it's once a month? Let me tell you what happens. Nothing happens. You have a monthly meeting, there's a lot of stuff discussed, you come back a month later. If you keep good notes of what happened during the week, and that's the key, by the way, for the CEO, is to keep, and because imagine, here's what I do. I have 10 companies that I help all over the world. Once a week, I help the CEO constantly work on the business. Just yesterday morning, I did one where we got 2 things working really, really well in the company that they had never focused on. One was recruiting, and I'm trying to think of what the second thing was. But his recruiting was really weak, and so we had a recruiting meeting, and we brought in, this is a bigger company, we brought in his HR executive, and we just streamlined it in like 15 minutes. It was awesome. 15 minutes, just looked at what the procedures were, and just said, well, why are we taking 3 weeks to do this when can't this be done in a day? And sort of they're all real quiet because I'm on the phone. You know, this is in England. And they're going, and the CEO goes, well, we really don't have to take 3 weeks to do that. We could do that in a day or 2, couldn't we? And the HR goes, well, I don't see why not. And it was a VP had set some procedure in place, and he was in the room too and really couldn't think of a reason why he'd set the procedure in place, and boom, we removed it, and we worked on the business, and we fixed something in 15 minutes that had been broken for 10 years. And this happens with me and clients again and again and again. They have things that are broken for 10 years. They never stop to work on it. I had another client. He had 18 customer service complaints that had elevated all the way to the CEO on a consistent and regular basis. And in 2 hours, one week we solved 9 of them, the next week we solved the other 9. We put in proactive procedures to address those things and get them fixed once and for all. So that's what I'm telling you. You can have profound results. And like I said, if it's 6 impact areas, now some of you I saw, one person army, you wrote down 15 things. That's probably not realistic, okay? It's too many things to work on. You'll end up doing nothing. So that's why I want to just try and, rein you in a little bit, pick those impact areas where we're going to have a massive impact and work on those first. The goal is in the meetings is to cause constant and incremental improvement, and that's where your pig-headed discipline is going to make the difference, because when you come back to that meeting, you've got a list. So what I do is I have a giant binder. It's managed mostly by my assistant, and in the binder is the section for each one of my clients, and I open it up each time, and I've got a big list of stuff I'm working on with them, and I look to move those things forward. And sometimes, some of the things didn't get worked on at all, and I have pig-headed discipline, I can tell you. So I just hold their feet to the fire and make them work on improving those things and constantly do it. And I won't let go until we get the improvement, and that's the biggest critical lesson I can tell you, is that you must insist on constant and incremental improvements. Just a little improvement. But if you do this once a week, in a year, how many meetings is that? 52 meetings. You can have profound impact on your business if you will take 52 proactive meetings to improve some aspect of your business. It's going to be awesome. And again, and a lot of guys in this room where not only did they learn that from me, but I personally policed that for a year or more. So, but make this more, I'm going to go into this more in a minute. Okay, let's talk about the small company or one-person armies. Same basic formula, the list should be smaller and the time spent shorter. Meaning if you have a $6 or a $5 or $10 million company, then you could probably do 6 hours a week. And I will tell you this, you'll come back to me, as other clients have, and you'll say, you know what? I can't think of a better way to spend those 6 hours a week, because that whole time is proactive. It's focused on the problems in the company. It's focused on fixing them. You tell me a better way to spend 6 hours a week. Is there just reacting to things all week, or sitting down to proactively fix those areas of the business with the people responsible for those areas? For a smaller company, don't have 18 things on your list. You won't do it. You should have 2, 3. I mean, that's it. And get those, and then you can add more things when you get those, because that's going to make all the difference. In fact, in a small company, you might want to tackle one thing, 1 hour per week, period. Just take one thing and make it great. Spend 3 months on it if you have to. If it's your marketing, and if it's your customer acquisition, if you take 1 hour a week and you spend 1 hour a week thinking about how you can acquire more customers and adding another method to whatever it is you're doing, in a year you spend 52 hours on building your business. Guess what's going to happen to your business? It's going to improve. Okay. Get your prospecting down to a science, or work on customer service procedures, and make sure you're marketing every single week. Should be every single day, and that's another session coming, but for your one-person armies or smaller companies, there has to be some daily activity to build your business, or what happens is it's the feast or famine thing, and you small companies know what I'm talking about. You work getting clients, suddenly you've got a lot of clients, then you work like crazy, now the clients go away, and you have no clients because you have no process, no procedure in place to go get clients on a regular basis. Some questions to prove my point. Small companies with 3 or less people. Answer these questions. Keep your hand up if you religiously spend at least 1 hour per week proactively improving some area of your business. Okay, so small companies with 3 or less, raise your hand. Now keep your hand up if you proactively spend at least 1 hour a week improving some area of your business. Well, we got a couple of you. You Chet trained? Okay, all right. Okay. The early Chet tapes, okay. Training saves money. Consistent quality training saves clients. It saves sales. It improves sales. It speeds the sales process. It improves client relations. It reduces employee turnover. It reduces stress. It sets a clear path. It lets employees know where they are, when they're on track. So I'm just trying to make the case here that you just have to devote some of your company and some of your time to making the company run like a bigger company, even if it's a little small company. It has a huge. It improves relationships. Supervisors clarify the standards by which employees will be judged. Employees know where they stand and know how they will be judged, so a lot of companies don't have those standards in place. Client relationships improved as everyone is constantly trained on the importance of client relationships. That's another area you could have down there. Here's an employee quote after 3 months of constant training. This is a sales team in Toronto that sold newspaper advertising for a very well-known newspaper up there that I did a turnaround on. And after 3 months of continuously training, this sales rep says, "Oh, I get it now. We're supposed to build relationships." And it was like so obvious to me in the first training we did, and here we're 3 months later and they just got it. And that's the point. It's amazing how you have to stay on one thing until you actually get it working in your company. It can make a huge difference. I used to teach, take one competency per week and work on it, and then next week take another competency and work on it, and there were 12. So when I gave you my 12 competencies, you had 3 months of training. And that's way more than most companies were doing anyway, so it was really profound. And then I said, at the end of the 12 weeks, come back to the first competency. Well, let's say competency number 1 is time management, because that does happen to be one of the competencies. And you work on that on a Monday, and then we bring you back 3 months later to work on it again, and you're like, oh, yeah, right, we talked about this, and yeah, I see a lot of things. Well, now what I tell you, what I see, how you get even more profound results, is if you want to improve time management, don't let go of it until you improve it. If you have to spend 6 months on that, spend 6 months on it and get it working great. So I'm going to lay that out for you. I'm going to show you how to run any company, but I'm going to tell you that pick 1 or 2 things and make them work, not 12 things, because I've doubled and tripled the sales of many a company by getting 2 things working really well. And I'll give you plenty of examples. Train or be derailed, keep training no matter what. Supervisors have many jobs. All are important. None are as important as training. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Do you want to learn the Heimlich maneuver when someone is choking? Or do you want to already know that? Okay? That's called crisis intervention training. And that's an interesting science because it was mentioned that I had a karate school. And if I could get 100 people in a room, I could get 98 of them to sign up for one of my I had taught self-defense training programs. And like Michael pointed out, we were on Times Square. Psh, what were we thinking? You had to learn self-defense before you could come to our studio. Not anymore. I mean, Times Square is great now. You know, this is a long time ago. I was 25 years old, and we used to teach. And the reason I got people to come, I'd get up on stage, and again, there's a profound lesson here for some of you guys. And I would tell some stories right out of the headlines. How many people heard that girl who was, killed in Brooklyn last week? You heard that story? A lot of people raising their hands. Well, she got, and I don't want to be too dramatic here, but it's a totally true story. She was dragged up onto the roof of a building. She was, I'll spare you the details, it was not an unpleasant thing, but in the end she was strangled and thrown off the roof of the building, and they found underneath her fingernails skin. So this woman fought valiantly, but she didn't have any crisis intervention training. And so now you can see why I would get 98% of people, because if you're in a physical crisis, or you're under attack, or you're in a life-threatening situation, you're in one of 2 categories. 1, you have no training. You're going to be guessing. 2, you have training, you have very specific ideas, and you know what to do. Which category do you want to be in? So I'm showing you guys how you can set up a buying criteria. It's very powerful. But what's interesting is people think they're not going to remember things in a crisis. Your brain has a thing called a crisis scan. And when you're in a crisis, your adrenaline pumps into your system, and your brain speeds up. You know what I'm talking about? Anybody been in a crisis where suddenly, it's amazing, or you're in a car accident and all of a sudden everything seems to slow down? I accidentally drove a car off a cliff when I was 18 years old, and I was racing, 18-year-old stupid, I think it was 19, and I had a 440 1968 fire engine red Charger. I mean, just like the ultimate car for an 18-year-old, and the fastest thing I've ever driven in my life, and drove it off a cliff. And anyway, I was racing with another car, an Austin Healey. It was a little thing, and it was raining. We were on this country road going like this. I mean, you can't compete with an Austin Healey in that kind of an environment. On a straightaway, you'd kill it. But as I come around a turn, suddenly the car brakes from the wet ground. Actually, I came this way, and I started sliding sideways, and there was a car coming at me, and I punched the gas and turned the wheel, and the car went boom, and I fell cool, man, that was good driving. But now the next turn was like, no way. You know, I'd sped up to get out of that danger, and so the car hit this lawn, and I zipped across this lawn. I mean, it must have been less than a second. I was already doing 80 or 90, and I hit this lawn, and the car, zoom! I mean, it must have doubled in speed, 190. And I saw this tree coming at me, and then, so in that second, I pictured my father yelling at me. I pictured the car with a big dent in the side of it. You know, the whole thing's going through your mind, like, you know, how much trouble you're going to be in, all this, like, thousands of things. That's because adrenaline starts pumping into your system and your brain speeds up dramatically. Well, as it turns out, what happened was when the car hit the tree, it went like this and then rolled 265 feet down. And I can tell you the only reason I'm standing here today is because of all the karate training. I'm floating around on the inside of that car. Woo! Ah! I'm bouncing off the walls, and, you know. Anybody else would have broken every bone in their body because your tendency in a situation is you stiffen up. You'll crack your neck, your arms, your legs. But karate training, you know, you learn how to relax and, you know, don't fight resistance. And so I just relaxed, and I'm floating around on the inside of that car. I'm bouncing off of things, and I felt my teeth knocked out, and I felt the big chunks of, you know, blood. I felt blood running down my head. Turns out it wasn't my teeth. It was sand from the inside of the car. My teeth were fine. I didn't even scratch one. And there was no blood. It was water from somewhere in the car. Not a scratch on me. So imagine the guy I'm racing with. He sees my headlights go like this over a cliff. He knows I'm dead. So he's, and it's a friend of mine, he's laying on the lawn crying, and I come running, I mean, you know, again, adrenaline pumping into your system. I'm leaping up, 16, I come over the edge. My car, my car. It's like, your car? Forget your car. I thought you were dead. But the point is that any kind of training intervenes in a crisis or comes to your mind when you need it to. It's amazing how, if you know the Heimlich maneuver, your brain just goes, Heimlich maneuver in a situation. Anybody ever performed that on anybody? Right? I mean, you know, if you know it, your brain just goes right to that information. So let's not have people making up what they're going to do in each situation. Let's have you proactively think about it. So this other company I mentioned to you, that the 18 customer service, they'd never thought in advance, like, here's a great workshop for you. What's the biggest problem we have in this company in X? And ask yourself that question if you're a one-person army, and ask your staff it if you have a staff of people, and boy, they'll tell you. It's amazing how many people now in Japan, it is a requirement to give at least 2 suggestions a month in order to keep your job. In this country, you get in trouble for it. Right? Most companies, we have that culture where, you know, we don't want to hear your suggestions, bucko, you know. Well, that's the opposite of what you want to try and create in your company. You want to try and create an environment where anybody feels they can give suggestions on how to improve the company. And then don't just ignore them. Sit down with those people and say, okay, that's a great suggestion. That's a great problem you just brought up. How do you think we should solve that? It's profound. It is really profound. So make time for training. This is a woodcutter story. Woodcutter A cuts wood all day. Woodcutter B kept stopping, and at the end of the day, woodcutter B has 3 times more wood than woodcutter A, and he says, you know, how could this be? You know, you were resting all day. He said, I wasn't resting, I was sharpening my saw. So the moral to the story is take time to sharpen your skills, your tools, your resources. You're going to be more productive. So here's the best way to think about training. Repetition is the key to master level skills. The design of this program is conceived with simple law. No one gets good at anything without repetition. It's just the same things over and over and over. So karate requires tremendous discipline. In the early stages, you know, you're standing there doing this, and then at a certain point it gets pretty exciting. My son just joined a tennis thing, and he's frustrated because he's not getting better. And then you guys know that you just suddenly start to get really good, and then it gets really exciting when your skill level becomes profound. So obtaining master level skills in any of these, golf, tennis, sales, phone skills, it's about picking up, you know, how many ways are there to swing a golf club? You know, this is the right way and the wrong way, and how many thousands of times do you have to do that to get to the right way? So here's a graph that illustrates it really well. That meeting I mentioned, the 0 to 100 million, was an epiphany for me because at the time I was running 9 different companies, and I was in a totally reactive mode, and I was only 29 or something. I was just, you know, working 15 hours a day and every weekend. And so I got an epiphany of how to run a company really well, and I came into my office and I taught this thing on a Monday. I'm going to teach you guys exactly what I taught my staff. But here's master level skills. Here's the lowest level of skills. Here's most people with most skills. Most people have average skills in most areas, right? If you have some area of expertise, you're a great tennis player, you're a great golfer, you're a karate master, if there's some area that you have become extremely proficient at, it's because you worked at it. You don't get to be a master by being average. So I taught this program on a Monday, and you saw an immediate improvement. And what happened was on Tuesday, people came into me and they said, I did the things you taught us on how to manage our time more effectively, and I got to tell you, I had the most productive day perhaps of my entire career. You will all say the same thing if you apply the 6 principles I'm going to teach you in the next session, okay? But then, by Friday, almost nobody's doing any of it. Has that ever happened to you? You come in, you introduce some new thing to your thing, everybody tries it, they even see it works, and then by Friday nobody's doing it. Why? Because it takes time and pig-headed discipline to create change and growth in any organization. So what would happen is, here's where you started, and then you had an immediate improvement in skill. The drop-off is huge. It's just straight off. And then you have some permanent skill. So if you stop, when you go back to your offices and you try to implement some of this stuff, and it doesn't work right away, you'll think about some of it some of the time. And you'll have some permanent skill remains. But with me, again, pig-headed discipline and determination, I just taught the program again, and then the skill went up. The fall-off is not as dramatic. Here it went straight off. Here it's fall off a little. More permanent skill remains. Taught it again. And that's how you're going to get to master-level skills, is to pick areas that you feel, if you look down at that list of those 15 or 6 areas, you're just going to have to keep going over those areas again and again, and one day you will turn around and you'll be like, boy, we're really good at that. So that's my big contribution. Repetition is the mother of skill. An ideal training program will be designed for repetition. That's what it's all about. So just how serious are you about your company? Are you playing a business, or are you taking care of business? Because again, that is the key ingredient to building a great company, is working on it, not just in it. Number 1 essential of victory. Sun Tzu, Art of War. General Sun Tzu in 2000 BC wrote this book called The Art of War, and it was revered for, virtually centuries. And James Clavell, who wrote Shogun, thought it was had such great wisdom, he translated it into a business book called The Art of War. And it was on the bestseller list for like 5 years. It was huge. It was mentioned in movies. You ever see Wall Street with Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen? It's mentioned like 3 times in there. Art of War, Chapter 6, And they would spout it off. Well, the number 1 essential of victory, according to that book, and I totally, wholeheartedly agree, here it is, and forgive the sexist overtones, but there were no female generals in 2000 BC. It's, he will win whose army is animated with the same spirit throughout all his rank. I have a huge manufacturing client in England, and when I first got involved, they saw me at an event, the CEO approached me, and so I got involved, and what they call the co-managing director, not the managing director, he wanted no part of me, did not want me in there. And yet this company was in deep trouble. I mean, they were, going into the red, like falling like a rocket ship. And so the CEO was kind of removed from it. He hadn't been involved in it in years, and a very wealthy family, and didn't want to be involved in it neither. So when I got involved with them, I started doing the 1-hour workshops, and 3 months later, and the whole company divided, because the co-managing director wanted nothing to do with the whole ideas that I was bringing to the table, and I'll explain a little bit this more later. But he just emailed me this week and said, now that the programs you brought in are working really well, the whole company is united, and even this fellow who wanted nothing to do with me fought all the way, even tried to undermine me in places, is now completely on board, and the whole company is pulling in the same direction, and they are moving out of the red, baby. So number 1 essential of victory, get your team animated with the same spirit throughout all its rank. Let's get everybody on the same page, moving in the same direction, and that's what those weekly meetings will do. They will get you moving in the same page. So how do you get all your troops animated with the same spirit throughout all this rank? Well, you standardize core communication tools. So this is the most powerful thing any of you can do to unite your troops, certainly in your marketing and selling, is you need what's called a core story. How many people are familiar with that concept? Wow, a lot. Okay. So half of you know exactly what I'm talking about. The other half of you will learn, and it's going to change everything. Because when you have that core story, it's a fantastic training tool. It's a fantastic sales tool. But more importantly, it unites the whole company in a common theme or message. And then develop simple rules, strategies, and skills to be repeated again and again until all of your people rise to that master level skill. Second most powerful thing you can do. So when I went to work for Charlie Munger, my background, as Michael said, I was a top producer. I was one of those guys that loved to cold call in the morning. You know, that's a very unusual trait. And I've heard, you know, people say, well, nobody loves to cold call. I go, wait a second, I love to cold call. Give me a list of people that don't even know who I am. And the challenge is to get on the phone with total strangers. And for me, it was like a game. It was like a personal contest. Let me get on the phone, see if I can cold call, and see what I can make happen here. And so then I went to work for Charlie, and he had these magazines and newspapers and trade shows. I got one little magazine to start with, and then I ended up with 9 different pieces to work on. And I had had this experience of being top producer and thought the only reason I was top producer in these companies was because for some reason they didn't hire other top producers. And so I swore when I got into a position of authority I would hire nothing but top producers. So who here knows what happened when I got into a position of authority and went to hire nothing but top producers? It was really hard. I mean, it was like so hard. So I started building these systems, standard core communication tools. What is everybody going to say when they get in front of a client? I built that core story. It was the first one I ever built. Then the rules on what they're going to do. For example, 52% of salespeople will never call back a prospect who rejects them even once. Call up a prospect, yeah, hi, I'm with XYZ company. I'm not interested. Bye. Okay, thanks. See you later. Half of salespeople will never call that person back. When you get up to 4 rejections, you now have 95% of the population is done. They are never calling that person back. Now, top producers, me, and again, I'm not bragging, I'm just using myself clinically as evidence here. I decided what clients I wanted, and then I would go until I got them. It didn't matter how many times they rejected me or how often they put me off. I just kept thinking they didn't understand. And so I would go at them this way and that way and this way. Now, that is a psychological profile issue, by the way, and I'm going to teach you how to find those kinds of people for yourselves, for your selling. Because that psychological profile, when you can find it, is ideal. And when you can't find it, you work twice as hard to get half the result. But the important thing is, when I got into a position of management, is I started establishing what would be the minimum acceptable experience. So we had a program, which I have now, half of you guys in the room own it probably. It's called the 12 Steps to Get an Appointment with Anyone. So I would teach people, hey, look, we're going to try 12 times to get an appointment with anyone. And so when they were getting in on the 5th, 6th, and 7th time, they thought they were successful. Okay, meaning that normally they come and, 52% of them would stop after 1 rejection. So power of repetition to core concepts. Most of the better training programs come in, blitz an organization with a lot of information. You have a nice, healthy glow, for about a week, and then everybody goes back to business as usual. So by rotating core material, concepts are constantly reinforced and reiterated, skills impacted immediately, and yet over time they're permanently. It makes a huge difference. Okay. So what 3 things? Now let me give you an example. Okay. In Paul's company, there's 2 things we got working really well, and I'm more clinical and analytical than you are probably about it, Paul. But when I first got involved with him, the gold service was one, which I'm going to explain really well later on, and the other one was, he sends me tapes of his salespeople on the telephone. I'm listening to one of his salespeople, and she's talking to this woman who is 78 years old and is on a walker, and she wants to have her rug cleaned. Now, carpets, you can't roll up a carpet and take it out of here. It's wall-to-wall stuck to the floor. But rugs, you can roll them up and take them out, and he's got like a giant washing machine. They can drop your rug down in there, and they get it really clean. I mean, there's nothing left. It's totally clean. And so they arranged to have this carpet clean, and then the woman at some point says, well, what about the pad underneath this rug? Can we get that pad cleaned? And the salesperson says, how old is the pad? She says, oh, it's 15 years old. She goes, oh, no, that'll just obliterate. That'll fall apart. Oh, okay, I'll get a new pad. And so the woman goes on to take the order. So I write down, should sell pads, right? It's just a logical conclusion. Heck, they got the rug there, can have pads, sell it out, add it to the whole thing. Call Paul, say, hey, Paul, I got a great idea for you. He goes, what's that? I go, you should sell pads when you bring those rugs in. He goes, we do. Right? You remember this? So we bring the woman in. We say, why? Here's this woman with a walker going out to get a new pad, and we're not offering her a new pad. And she said, well, I didn't want to push it because, she wanted just carpet, she wanted just her rug clean. Okay, so there were 6 other services he offered, and that was the other thing. We worked on 2 things. We worked on the gold service, and we worked on getting his people to offer all 6 services on every single call. Now it's on an order form, right? They have to check it off that they offered it to every single client. And those 2 things have made a huge difference, and posters on the wall. So what 3 things for you? if I helped you at this event get them working really well, what are your 3 things that if you got really well, I'll give you another example. I had a client where we increased their ability to get appointments tenfold. They had 4 salespeople. They were getting 3 appointments a week. When I was done with them, they were getting 30. Just those, and by the way, that's one of 2 things. I worked on it for 6 months. Just work on appointment setting, appointment setting, appointment setting. You know, broke it down into little tiny pieces, made each piece a little better, made each piece a little better. So what are your 3 things? I'll give you 2 minutes to work on that. What 3 things, if you perfected them, would make a huge difference in your company? Regular meetings forces better internal communication. The best ideas now become shared. And it's amazing how, here I was, top producer of every company I ever worked in, and no one ever asked me what I was doing. And my psychological profile is I was so willing to share that. You know what I mean? Some guys might have been like, I'm not telling anyone. I was like, you know, I would have organized a seminar to teach it if they asked me. They never cared, you know? So when I finally got into a position of control, it was just, you know, it was like dolphin finding the ocean or something. You know, it was like exactly where I belonged. But having those meetings make everybody have the best ideas become shared versus only being used by the person who created it. Forces managerial staff to be more proactive, to think more, plan more, prioritize, and get a better focus. The entire company begins to sing in harmony. Team spirit, internal confidence improves. I mean, there's so many impacts from having better training. So if you want to have, you know, perfect sales attitude, there's a great thing to work on. Time management, great strategic thinking, great telephone skills, great sales skills, great follow-up skills, great presentation skills. You know, that's that process of going to that master level skill. That's where you ultimately want to end up. And so having those 52, even for a 1-person army, what happens is this could be you or your people with an idea here, a concept there, or this could be you where you've had 52 1-hour proactive sessions, and it's just a huge difference in what happens to you and your staff by doing that. And all of this stuff starts to cross-reference. So everything that you work on helps everything else. So this just shows if you wanted to do a session on creating strong visuals to communicate something, that could then be used to help you get appointments. It could be used in your selling process. It could be used in your follow-up steps. So everything sort of interacts with everything else when you're having regular, consistent meetings to improve the company. It just becomes very, very powerful. So when beginning a training session, again, it's a larger company model, people should be told what will be covered, how long it will take, how the information will be covered, the objective of the session, and the obtained skill or knowledge that you hope they will gain. Okay? And you know what I'd rather do here? If you look at the next page of this, actually I skipped this exercise and I really wanted to have you guys do this. It says, now answer the following questions about each of those areas and make it true or false. So this is the first part of working on the business. If false, put the area to be worked on. So in other words, if you look back, you outlined your main impact areas, right? Let's now look at those areas as a comparison to this, each one of these things where it says all employees perform each aspect of their job with a high degree of excellence and consistency. List the areas where this is not true. So what I'm trying to do is get you to build a little work plan here. So this lists at the bottom of page 2, you've listed the areas you need to improve in your company. And then going from 3 to 4 and 5 is the exercises of which one of these things are you going to work on that you can't, you ask this question and you answer, the answer is no, it's not true. So if you put, you know, your website as an example, it says all employees perform each aspect of their job with a high degree of excellence, that might not be applicable. If it's increasing your ability to get appointments, and you don't have very consistent rules that apply there that you know are going to be effective and you know work, then that needs to be listed in here as something you're going to work on. Is that clear to everybody? So look at your impact areas and go through on page 3 and 4 and list them. And then page 5, let's go to 5 for a second, says if you were to now break down your company into manageable chunks, what are the key impact areas you would work on weekly in order to improve your organization? So I've already kind of had you do that. And then how will you work on them? So I want to get a commitment where you actually start to think through how you're going to work on them. Now, let me just give you another rule for working on the business. It should always be early in the week. Because if you gather your staff and figure, well, let's put it on Friday, that's a slow day. You bring everybody together, and on Friday they all get together and they look at the areas. By Monday, nobody remembers what happened on Friday. So working on the business needs to be always on Monday or Tuesday, because then you have the momentum of a whole week, or Wednesday at the latest. So if you look at how you would actually work on breaking that company down and work on it, so to build yourself a little bit of a schedule right now. Okay, so let's work through these 3 pages. How are you going to work on that? Let's make some decisions right now. I used to spend, when I ran the 9 companies for Charlie, I had 2 days of meetings every week. And it changed my whole life. I came back from that 0 to 100 million conference that we put on, and I sat down with my staff. I actually sent out a memo, which I'll tell that story a little later, and it just changed everything. I went from working like a dog, working every single weekend, 15 hours a day, to proactively fixing every single thing in every one of those divisions, and I was able to double sales again for a 3rd year in a row once I got the hang of working on the business. So let's break it down and decide when you're going to work on these things, and let's even give it each a period of time, because you can't work on the business all the time. You do have to work in it, especially you smaller companies. So let's not get crazy, but let's decide right now. Is it every Monday from 3 to 4? Is it from, smaller entrepreneurial companies, it can be from 5 to 6 when the phones shut off. Larger companies can have administrative staff, and I have a lot of companies now where I'll call, including very famous ones, where I'll call and you'll get a recording saying we're in a company-wide meeting right now. So they will literally stop everything and work on the business to make it work better. So go ahead, move to that last page and make some commitments right now. What you're going to work on, that should be the top thing, at the top of 5. List those 4, 5, 6 areas, and don't get crazy. You don't want 13. You won't do it. And then commit to how you're going to work on it. Here's methods, okay? I'm just showing you some of the things that I do because it's just great experiential training. This teleconferencing workshops, teleconferencing makes it so easy for large, widespread groups to get together. I lead 10 mass teleconferences every week with clients all over the world. The one I did yesterday, we had 45 salespeople from England, Scotland, Ireland, and the U.S. on a teleconference. And we get on the calls, assign a workshop to get an idea, and then drill down with the participants. It's really powerful. We hot seat activities that we wish to improve, and you would not believe how people want to skip the details, yet that's where the real improvement can be found. So, if I get on a hot seat and I say, okay, so I did one yesterday. I'll use that as an example. I say to the sales guy, okay, so... And I've got their call reports, too, which we're going to talk about. But I've got a sales guy in front of me, and I'm on the telephone, and 45 other sales guys listening. I go, all right, we sent out 23 letters for you. How many have you called? I've called 9 of them. And how many appointments did you get? I got 6 appointments. Can anybody here get 6 appointments from 9 cold calls? Well, when I'm finished with you, I will show you how you do that. Because I worked those guys over in an iron headlock to get them to that level. I worked them over so hard that they can't make a mistake now. You cannot get one of their salespeople on the phone and trip them up and find a mistake they make when they get an executive on the phone. Now, most people, when you're trying to get an appointment, the initial reaction is always no. So my question to you is, how many different ways do you have to get them to say yes? In this company's case, we created 6 comebacks, 6 things to say when the executive is trying to turn you down, and each one makes it sound even better and even better and even better. So these guys are so well, I'll use the term, Chet trained now, because I've worked them over so hard on how to get those appointments, that this guy got 9 managing directors, because this is in England, that's their equivalent of a CEO. He got 9 managing directors on the phone, and he got 6 appointments. So what do you think I want to know? Why did the other 3 say no? I can't understand that. So I work on the 3 that said no. And we're drilling down with him. And he wants to skip the details because he, first of all, does not want to be hot-seated with 45 of his fellow sales guys working. He don't want to be hot-seated by me. You know what I mean? So, and then we took, so that was the first thing. And he only called 9, so what happened to the other 14? So, oh, I didn't get to them yet. And when the letters go out, they went out like, 8 days ago. So you waited 6 days too long to get to those other 14 because they've already forgotten who you are and they forgot about that letter. So, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, putting in those procedures, and then this is just a great way. What's wonderful about this conference, who has the conference calling company? Okay? I want to talk to you. I do conference calls with companies all over the world, and I got news for you. Any client of mine in this room probably is buying another conference service, and I must have sent 200 companies to this conference service because I talk about teleconferencing as a way to do workshops. I talk about teleconferencing as a way to do training. How many people are here because they were on a teleconference training program with me or Jay Levinson or one of my other speakers? Half the room, okay? So definitely, we want to talk to you, and then when I mentioned that as a method for generating clients, let's find out a little bit about what you do, and you'll get hundreds of clients like this other undeserving firm that's never rewarded me not one bit for sending them 200 clients. In fact, doesn't do a good job in servicing me, is it? Okay, great. So the hot seats are really powerful because that's where I'm drilling down and I'm going into the detail. And okay, so what did you say? Well, I said, and like I said, you can't trap this guy up very well because I've worked him over so hard. And when he's role-playing with me, he's doing even better than he actually did with the CEOs because now he's in front of the guy that taught him what he should be saying in those 6 comebacks that we created over several months, 6 different ways. I have had 50 Fortune 500 clients. You know how I got them? Personally, got on the phone, called the chairman of Wells Fargo Bank, Carl Reichert, personally went tit for tat with the guy for 10 minutes with him turning me down 6, 7, 8, 9 times until I wore the guy down. So that's what I'm talking about. How much can we procedurize it, and how much have you guys worked on that? What's your process? Because it just makes a huge difference. Webcasts can even be used if you want to use the visual aids, and we've got a company in the room that can do that for you. So, by the way, how many people saw the webcast Jay and I did? That was pretty cool, huh? Although there was so many, unfortunately, it was hundreds of people all at once, so there was some of you had some glitches. But really, really compelling stuff. Okay. 2-person workshop. Workshop will want to assign a question or a problem to the individual, let them think through their answers, and open up the topic for discussion. So workshop means that you're putting something on the whiteboard, and we're going to work on it. Now, here's the cool thing I want you guys to understand. We pick any one of those challenges, and let's pretend that you guys all work with me. I'm CEO, and you guys are my staff, and we've just come up in this group right now, you and me, me and my staff, we've come up with 22 challenges we face in our company. Let's take one of them. Let's put it up here on the board, okay? And then let me not try to come up with the solution. It's the biggest shift you're going to get if you have a staff. Or again, if only 2 of you. And you say, okay, now I want to have every one of you for the next 3 minutes work on possible solutions. And in a lot of companies, that is perhaps the first time you've ever stopped the world to talk about how to create solutions for some of the problems you all outlaid. So, I mean, it works really well. Now, here's the wrong way to do a workshop. Okay, everybody, the challenge we have is that it's harder to get in the door than ever before. I want some ideas. Bob, what are your ideas?
Make lots of phone calls.
This is good. He came up with one right off the top of his head. It's going to work better if we give him time to think about it. Let you guys sit there and work on it. So that's the thing. Spend time. Allow time for people to think. Don't expect people to come up with the answers right off the top of their head. 1-person Army workshop. Same procedure. Put something at the top of a piece of paper that you want to improve and spend several minutes jotting down ideas on how you're going to improve it. Next steps, no matter what, the magic of the 3 Ps, the planning, policies, and procedures, which we've talked about, is break it down. Planning, create the plan. What are the next steps? If we take anything that you guys help me, and now we've got 52 suggestions, and by the way, that's not uncommon. We take the 22 problems that we have there, and then we put them up on here, and we ask you guys for ideas. We get 50 ideas. So now, actually, before planning, as I'm saying and I'm realizing it, we need to prioritize. What's going to be the thing that will have the most impact? What should we do first? So let's look at our list of suggestions from everybody on how we're going to improve, whatever that area is, and then let's prioritize. Let's pick the most important things. And again, remember, I got a whole session on that that's top of the game, so I don't want to go too deep there. Then we'll create the plan. What are the next steps? Then we outline the procedures that we're going to follow. And then ultimately, after you've perfected the idea or concept, you turn it into a company policy that will be strictly enforced. That word, enforced. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Leading a group workshop. Let's use establishing rapport. Let's use that you guys want to build better relationships with your clients, or in a sales situation, what can we do to establish rapport? So assign a workshop or individual to create a list of at least 6 different ways to establish better rapport. Now, if we put this group right now through this exercise, and I said to all of you guys, give me 6 is probably too many, especially with a large group, by the way. So leading a large group, it should be a smaller number, because remember what we did with you? What are your biggest challenges? Remember I told you I explained why we did that? Because what we found is that by table 6, we were coming up with the same duplicate. We only ended up with 22 challenges, and there's 100 people in this room. So, you know what I mean? You find very quickly universal things that keep coming up again and again. So if you say, give me your top 3 ways to establish rapport, and I made you work on that right now, you know we're going to get some really good ideas from this room. That's the whole idea of workshopping, is put your people to work on improving some aspect of your business. Once this is done, ask the chairperson to read off the workshop's findings, okay? This is exactly what we did. Summarize the findings on an easel or whiteboard, exactly what we did. Probe for deeper understanding of each given answer. So if I didn't understand you, I kept saying, well, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Make sure I understand it. Add your own input along the way, trying to continually compliment and encourage comments. So again, the person leading the workshop has the control of the situation, really good control. So if you're the CEO of your company, or if you're the sales manager and you're running a sales workshop, you have a lot of control. You know, when you say, okay, Joe, what's your idea? Sam, what's yours? And then you parenthetically comment as you go. You go, that's a very good suggestion, but I think that, and you can even change and alter stuff as you go. You really have tremendous control in a workshop. It's a fantastic way to get in there and work on your business, okay? What do you mean? Give me an example. Can you explain that? Sound familiar? I've probably said all 3 of those on a regular basis. Now you can even vote on priorities. So that's another thing when we talk about priorities. What I'll do, and I'm upstaging something later on that's coming up here, but let's say that you just hired me. Let's say this table right here, you guys just retained me, and I'm to help you. Here's exactly what I do. The very first workshop I come to do with your company, I say, okay, you know, these guys have hired me because they decided that they want to have some fast growth, and I'm going to get involved. And you got your whole staff is listening. And I do this all over the phone, by the way. Never go in person. Do it all over the telephone, all over the world. I'll go, I want you to list for me, what are the things standing in the way of growing this company faster, better, or smarter? And that's all I have to ask. I want at least 3 suggestions, but don't stop there if you have more, from each one of you. And in most cases, it's the very first time ever in the history of the company that they've asked their employees that very important question. You know, we want to grow really fast. What are the top 3 things standing in the way of this company running faster, better, smarter? So you have to have guts to retain a guy like me, because that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm letting you know right now. I'm going to get in the company. I'm going to ask everybody for all the problems and challenges. Now that does a lot of things, by the way, that workshop. What did it do in this room when we had you guys outline your biggest challenges? It put you in the mood to learn, didn't it? You know, so first of all, you listed your own individual challenges. I had you do that. Then the second thing you did is you then commiserated and shared your challenges with everybody else at your table. So the whole room was in pain by the time we actually went around to trying to get anything. It puts you in the mood to learn. Same thing with your own staff. Same thing, you know, when I go and I do that specifically for the purpose of knowing that I'm going to get that company focused on their problems. It puts everybody in the room in the mood to learn. And also gives me 22 things to work on now. And I know exactly how to work on it. I'm not holding anything back. I'm telling you guys precisely what I would do if I got involved. Now I just put those things up on the whiteboard and I keep working on them. I don't have to come up with a single solution. I don't have to be a brilliant genius. I just got to have the intelligence to ask you what some of the solutions are, and we'll get some great ideas out of every single one of you. So it's very powerful and very dynamic stuff. So at a retail chain that I helped, they grew to 60 stores. and he had put people on the spot workshops. That's where you go, I want a suggestion right now. Come on, think of one. And he's a very dynamic fellow, CEO of a $100 million company. And he would just put people on the spot. And also, he would sit down every year, and he would try and think of his 18 strategic initiatives. And I'm like, his name is Alan. Alan, if you get your store managers involved and we ask them what they should be working on, I bet you're going to get way better ideas than you're ever going to come up with. He's like, you're probably right. It was like profound, you know, it was amazing. The owner thought he had to come up with all the ideas for improving his group. You don't have to. Let me relieve you of that responsibility. If you have, you know, anything more than 2 or 3 people, you can sit down there. Don't work so hard. The only thing a senior management person has to bring to a meeting is their judgment. That's it. You know, if you got a staff of people, just bring in there, just ask good questions. And then, you know, create the environment where they can give good ideas. So like the worst thing you can do is to chastise someone or criticize someone, and I've had this happen in clients, well, they go, that's a really stupid idea. You know that won't work. No. And it creates an environment where nobody wants to share. And so I tell people, no matter how stupid the suggestion is, you need to act like, good suggestion, thank you very much. You know, having trouble implementing, ask your staff how they would do it. If there's something you can't get implemented, Paul, how many times do we ask your guys, well, guys, how can we make this work even better? You're going to get some universal concepts that will help solve problems, just like right now. This is universally applicable stuff that helps you solve problems. You understand? So then, you know, now we're going to drill down and drill down and drill down, but that doesn't mean that that solves a specific problem. Later on, we're going to get into very specific problems. In fact, almost every one of the challenges you guys brought up, if not every single one, will be addressed during the course of these 3 days by one or more of the experts in many different ways. So those are tools, and now when you go to solve those problems, you're in a very good position to do so. The real power of workshops is just stopping everything and working on the business. First workshop I do, already said this. Now, Scott Holman's going to do 2 sessions, but neither of them cover this steps to implementation. And I've souped this up big time over what he teaches. But he built 2 companies to $100 million, and at the height of the first company, he was hiring 55 new people a week. Who here in this room could hire 55 new people this week and get them integrated seamlessly in their company? And before you answer, and next week hire another 55 and do it again? Anybody? We got 1. It's amazing. I need to interview you, find out what you did. But that is a very rare skill, and so, but, you know, that's what Wells Fargo does. You know, they hire 55 new tellers every week, and what they have are lots of systems and procedures and policies and plans and great training. It's all laid out. So what would you have to do in order to accomplish that? Have 8 regional offices with 100 employees in each, operating at 500 separate locations. Have everyone singing in perfect harmony. It takes the 3 Ps, but you have to be pretty darn serious. And most business owners aren't serious enough. So if you're not spending time working in it, we already said that. So here's, if we look at some of the things that you've now laid out as things you need to get fixed in your organization, and actually, I'm thinking about it, this would have been better after we had the tactical aspect of you want to improve your selling, or you had picked some tactical things. But I think you got enough stuff to work on. Let me show you. This is Scott's 6 steps to implementing anything with my extra 8. So it's kind of a blend of, this is how I get things done in companies. And I've had the privilege of working with 50 of the largest companies in the world, where you want to talk about challenge to implement is incredible. And then hundreds and hundreds of smaller companies where it's way easier. Because most of the companies in this room, if I sit down with you and start working every week, we can have huge impact in a very short period of time. So number 1, develop a conceptual solution or procedure. So this is, let's say there's anything in there you want to fix. It's your cold calling, or it's your, we had some people trying to reduce a cost in manufacturing, or it's your customer service procedure, it's your cross-sell or your upsell or your, you know, your cold calling. Just any area that you wrote down as some area. These are the steps to how you actually create implementation in your organization. We say conceptual because it's not proven. In the beginning, anything you develop is just conceptual. So Paul and I, when we went to implement the gold service, in his company, it was purely conceptual, and we had their top producer try it out, whose impression after the first week was that it didn't work. Remember, I already showed you that. So, and we just kept tuning that thing up and tuning it up and rewriting scripts and rewriting scripts. And every other month we asked his staff, hey guys, how can we get this to work even better? And they'd give us ideas. And in the beginning, not one of them wanted to do it, by the way. Not one of them wanted to have anything to do with that gold service. They were super resistant. Generating referrals is an example. So you would develop a conceptual solution or procedure for generating referrals. How many people have a really good, highly functional, standardized referral procedure in their business? One guy who is afraid to raise his hand. Two, I'm sorry. Okay. The step I'll add to Scott's step is that you can do workshops as a way to polish and implement. So you can get that idea from other people. So, and again, if you're one-person army, you sit down and say, let me see, now I'm going to give you some really good ideas on generating referrals. So don't worry, you don't have to come up with every idea, but it's just a great idea of a workshop. And then getting your team to give you ideas on, hey, how do we do this? What should be the conceptual procedure? Again, if you help create the world that you live in, you adapt much faster than if somebody tells you what you should be doing. Agree? Okay. Number 2, leader personally performs a procedure or task. If you want to fail, go ahead and skip this step. Having the staff simply do what you say does not give nearly the same insight as you doing it yourself and figuring it out. Again, small company model. You know, if you're a Fortune 500 company, you don't normally, as the CEO, step in and do a cross-sell or an upsell, but you pick what I call champions. Who's going to champion this idea, and that person accepts the emotional responsibility for making that idea effective in the organization. The leader has the biggest picture. Now, in Scott's case, he would personally get in and perfect everything, and that's how he knew no one could pull the wool over his eyes about anything, because he personally had tried everything that he was saying would work, and they couldn't tell him, oh, that won't work. He said, well, you're wrong. I've done it actually, out of the 16 times I've tried to do the upsell, I've done it successfully 9 out of 16 times. So you must be doing something wrong. Let's get in there and find out what it is. Okay, hands-on involvement at every level enables the leader to create the 3 Ps with certainty. Document step-by-step procedure or process. Spell it out. Scripts, procedures, activities, expected results. Make it so 50 new hires could come in today and everything would be clear by them following your 3 Ps manual. So think, in whatever it is we're talking about right now, let's say we had to train 50 people on it. Think about that. Even if it's one person, it changes everything. Okay, show and tell. Take your documented steps and work with the staff to implement. Show and tell. If it's a telephone procedure, demonstrate it or record it yourself doing it. And those hot seats are really powerful. Okay, simulation and workshop. Again, I'm going to insert some Chet stuff here. Role play and workshop the idea before you roll it out. Role play and work over your staff, forcing them to do exactly as you would have them do it. This example I gave you of yesterday's workshop where I'm working with this manufacturer, they know they can't make a mistake because I worked them for 6 weeks on just getting appointments, on just the 5, 6 comebacks you need to have where that CEO cannot turn you down. So where you feel pretty stupid if you're on the phone with me again and I'm asking you, well, what did you say next? And you know what the right answer is. So, I mean, I'd love to see any of you getting 6 out of 9 appointments. You get 9 CEOs on the telephone. Now, by the way, that's England where it's easier. To my delight, all my stuff works better in England because they don't have the aggressive sales natures that we have here. My stuff works great here compared to not using it. But in England, it works fantastic. It's amazing. Then ask them how they think they might make it even better. That's another great step. Now, after you've had the procedure, stop the world and say, guys, how can we make this even better? Just make them work at that. It's just profound. Number 5, monitor the procedure directly. So what happens is a lot of times, like in Paul's case, again, I'm sorry to keep using you, Paul, but it's just a great implementation example. You know, he recorded the reps so that I could hear the actual conversations that went on. And we corrected and monitored weekly. You know, that's why you have people go out and test something, come back a month later, forget about it. That's crazy. And if it's really intense and it's really important, monitor it every day. so that you can be sure that they're going to do it properly. More on monitoring. First, immediately monitor the person or people following the procedure. Think of yourself as a military leader training your troops in the importance of hand-to-hand combat and survival. Do you want to have your person trying to figure that out when they get into battle? Or do you want to role play the heck out of that so that when they get into battle, they are really, really ready? The last seminar I did, there's me on the website, there's a shot of me kicking some guy in the head. And we brought up a guy out of the audience, and he holds a gun on me. And then I say, now, if I move, if I blink, if I do anything that makes you nervous, what I want you to do is just go bang. So he's got this gun on me. It's right in my face. And I go, and I take the gun out of his hands, and he goes bang. And I have the gun now. It's you know. So then I put the gun back in his hand, and I say, now, if I move, if I blink, you know what I'm going to do. If I move any way that makes you nervous, I want you to say bang. And again, take the gun right out of his hand. And he says bang, bang, and I already have the gun. So the point is that intellectually I can teach you very quickly what I did there, why it works, how any one of you could do it, but would you really want to try without practicing it a few hundred times maybe? So, that's one of the keys is, practice that thing, rehearse them, role play it, make sure everybody's really got it before you start putting people out there. Let's see. Second, randomly but consistently observe and correct the procedure. Again, now you have trained your soldiers and they are in combat. The mistakes they make could cause lives. Don't you want to correct and monitor at every single turn? Number 6, measure and reward the outcome. You must measure intently. People respect what you inspect, so you need measurements. And the reward comes last, after the bugs are out, but it is critical. Set very specific criteria. Do not reward for the same standard of performance, meaning that, you want to reward for improvement on the model, not for the same model. So I've seen, I'll talk people into doing a reward program. They go back and create a reward program where if they did the same thing they did last year, they make more money. Well, that's not a very good CEO thinking there, is it? Okay, make a big deal out of the reward process. I learned that when I was 19 years old. My first sales job was at a furniture store, and the CEO of the company would come in and give away $100 to the top producer, and $100 if you met your quota, and $100 for top spiffs, and that means the lamps and the end tables and things on the floor. So you had the potential of hitting 3 $100 bills, and he would shake my hand. Well, I'm giving it away. I won it every month. But he would make such a big deal out of it that I would kill myself not to be the top. Anytime anybody even got close to me, I'd work 3 times harder. Not even for the $100. It's just I want to be the guy that was getting all that recognition. So people will work really hard to get the recognition. When I was really young, one of the jobs I had during one of the summers was selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. Anybody ever do that here in the thing? And they used to sing. Talk about your first meeting where you go in there and you're like a 19-year-old, hippie who just cut his hair. And people are singing, well, he's a Kirby man, shake his hand, shake his hand. You make a sale, they would sing and shake your hand, the whole group of them. And it was just really corny, but, it gave you this feeling, It's really powerful stuff. Additions to implementing. When trying to create real change in an organization, you have to help everyone, including yourself, define, outline, and intensify the pain of not fixing it. This is what the first exercise did. Put you guys in pain. Let's talk about your problems, because now you're really in the mood to learn. And so we're going to have a profound result by getting you there. So let me just tell you, when you're trying to create real change in your organization and you've got something you want to create, so for Paul's with the gold service, in fact, I think we skipped this step, and we should have done it, is what happens, guys, do you want to be chasing every month those deals, or do you want to know for a fact that every month you're going to have 400 people who are going to buy from you if you don't even work that hard because they're on the gold service plan? So that's my challenge to you, is like you have to put, the first time I did a Fortune 500 implementation, I went in, conducted an audit, I came up with these great ideas to help the company, I presented to the CEO, he thought the ideas were terrific, he was really impressed and felt he had spent my first Fortune 500 client's $360,000 fee, felt that he had spent his money really well. He flew in his entire sales team into Denver, 255 salespeople. I went up, I presented my ideas, they intellectually understood them. They kind of pretty much agreed with them that they were pretty good ideas. They went out the next day and kind of tried them a little bit here or there. It didn't work, and they abandoned them immediately, and it totally failed. It's my very first client. So if you can't already tell what kind of person I am, that doesn't go over very well with me. I don't go to help clients and fail. That's not, what I mean? I'm not that kind of a guy. So I learned right then and there that implementation was critical, and I learned this very powerful lesson. The first thing you need to do if you want to get people to change is show them why what they're doing now isn't working and make it intense as possible. Okay? Go to the workbook for an exercise, and from your list of challenges, let's choose something, one thing we can go to work on right now. So let's do a workshop right now on some of the solutions. So right now, those of you who have your team, I know you're probably sitting at different tables, but let's look at one of the things. Just pick one thing in your list that you would like to fix, and right now let's do a little mini workshop on some ways that you can fix it. All right, let's do a workshop. Okay, let's do a workshop right now on some of the solutions. Take one of the smaller challenges you wrote down, something easy to fix. Maybe it's a standardized form that you need to create. Maybe it's a standardized email. Take one of the easy things that you can fix right now from the list of challenges that you wrote down and select that out. Take a few minutes right now. All right, with your team or by yourself if you're one-person army, I want you to write several possible solutions. Just go ahead and do that right now. Now, I want you to decide which solution you're going to implement. Pick the one that you feel you want to implement. Now that you've decided what solution you want to do, I want you to prioritize. Take the solution and write down in order what the steps are that you're going to have to take in order to make that solution a viable reality. Do that now. Okay, now, as a really good exercise, let's look at the pain of not fixing it. What has this thing caused? What are the problems that you're having? What are the problems compounded? How bad can they get? How long do they last? How much are they costing you? Take a look at the pain of not fixing this problem. Just do that exercise right now. Now that you've prioritized, you should have a good list of the tasks required in order to fix your problem. If you don't, take a minute and do that now. Okay, if there are requirements that you need in order to get to these tasks, you should have them listed out as well. If you don't, take a minute and do that right now. Now assign ownership. That's a very important step here. Who's going to take the ownership? If there's 2 or 3 tasks involving 2 or 3 different people, you have to assign who's going to take the ownership. This shouldn't take more than 30 seconds. Do it now. Now, ownership without deadlines is useless. So let's set some deadlines of what people are going to do and when they're going to do them. Do it now. Now, with most solutions, as I've already said throughout this series, you have to test them. You can't obviously do that right now, but just know that that's going to happen. And then also you have to monitor them to make sure that they're being properly implemented and that there's no mistakes in the implementation process. And then you have to create the formal procedure once you find out what works. and that becomes a company policy for moving your company forward. And of course, you have to continue to monitor. Okay, and have you done this? From a recent workshop, we did a workshop with a client where we created a reward for anyone who came up with a hard and notable savings. And 20% of the savings go to the one who discovers and implements them. That might be too much because somebody came up with one that was like $1 million savings, and the owner of the company ended up giving him $200,000. But it's a killer workshop.
What's wrong with that? Yeah.
Well, he wasn't very happy at the time, I can tell you. Yeah, well, he had to back it up. So I'm just cautioning you, be careful, because you never know what people are going to come up with when you start to reward them. But it's just a great workshop. You know, and the thing you have to understand is anytime you save money, it's pure profit. Meaning, you know, most companies operate on a 10% margin, so if you want to add $100,000 in profit, you have to get $1 million in sale. But if you save $100,000, you drop $100,000 in profit right into your pocket. So it's, again, just a great little workshop for you, is to add that to the, you know, we found 5 significant ways to save money. It was really impressive. And there were a lot of silly suggestions, too. You know, put the Coke machine over here so we don't have to walk as far. I mean, silly little things. But there were some really big concepts, so it's a great one. First impressions are everything. A new employee's first impressions are the most powerful. What kind of first impression are you making on new employees? And this is what makes the huge difference in how well your company is going to run. Are you setting a tone of excellence? Are you stressing the importance of the client? So here's a new hire meeting a new well-established employee that says, we say the client comes first, but it's a bunch of hot air. And this guy's going, well, what have I done? So, you know, I mean, there's procedures for bringing new people into your company. It makes a huge difference. You need first impressions to an employee. Here's the orientation process you will go through. This is what you will learn, and this is how much time we will spend learning it. Nearly all conceivable questions or concerns will be addressed. Now think about, you're hiring a new employee, and this is the first 5 minutes of their day with you. Notes to supervisor: be prepared, be sharp, be in control, explain ongoing training. Have other employees introduce themselves in a friendly and helpful manner. I mean, that's part of your processes, that everybody is told to go and introduce yourself in a friendly and positive manner. That part of every person's job is to introduce new people, introduce themselves to new people in a positive way. Remember, the first impression will guide an employee for the entire term of their employment. So you need to make sure you're making a great first impression. All right, the Business Growth Master Series is now your new hire training program. Now, in your workbook, in the introduction letter, the very first page of your workbook, it tells you which modules to use for what level of employees. Just spells it out. Salespeople, here's the modules. Management, here's the modules. Administrative staff, here's the modules. It just lays it all out for you. So now, what this is going to be is your new employee hiring training program. You're going to make all new employees spend their first day, first few days, whatever it takes, depending upon how many modules that particular employee has to study. And remember, you have tests. There's tests for before they take the module, and there's a test for after they take the module. Now, if you look at big companies, this is the main thing they do really, really well, and that entrepreneurial companies do really poorly. So you now have a new hire training program. Now, what happens when every employee on your staff has been trained with at least the basics of the Business Growth Master Series is that you now all share a large common pool of knowledge that helps the company communicate at a higher level, that helps all employees perform at a higher level. So that's standard. That needs to be the #1 thing we do with all new employees. And the more formal you can make it, the better impression you're going to make. Okay, let's go back to the live event. The other thing about training is to make it fun. Harvard Review article declared that only 10% of the population are natural learners, the people who look forward to learning. That means 90% of the population only learns because they have to. And serious, I'm not kidding. Some people are here in the room because they love to learn and they're learners, and I tend to attract those guys as my clients. So again, I want to acknowledge my clients, because you guys are here because you're perpetual learners. It's your natural nature. And other people are here because they have to. They have a problem right now. They have, you know, they're not, business is bad, things are slow, things aren't working, you know. So I'm telling you, you need to be one of those people who learns for the fun of it. Those people are always on the cutting edge. And then it says, since 90% of your staff are reluctant to take time to train, you must make training fun, interesting, and stimulating, and you must also make it mandatory. That's why I say, when I get involved, I have the CEO sends out a memo saying, you know, this is when we're going to meet. It's Mondays at 3 o'clock. It's every single Monday without fail. Write it in your calendar. You will not have a doctor's appointment during that time, because those can be set up anytime. You will not have a dentist appointment during that time. No offense intended to the doctors, dentists we have in the room, because those can be set up at any time. These are non-negotiable, absolutely mandatory meetings that we will have. Can anyone tell me the professions that now have mandatory continuing education? Yes, yell some out. Lawyers, doctors, dentists, nurses, accountants, real estate. You know why? Because 90% of them will not go and get training unless it's mandatory. So imagine having some doctor who's been in, you know, the backwoods of upstate Arkansas using some technique that's been expired for 30 years. And there are a lot of them that would never go back to school if you didn't force them. So now that's why they have mandatory continuing education, because 90% of people won't learn unless they have to. So make it mandatory. And again, you one-person armies, set a schedule no matter what that you're going to follow. We retain 20% of what we hear, 20% of what we see, 50% if we see and hear it, and 85% if we get involved. Okay, so your retention goes up dramatically. And again, what just happened to this communication experience? You can feel it went down. So our visual, and I'm going to talk more about this later, but visual aspects of training can make it really powerful. At the very least, you will always use visual aids. They nearly triple the retention. Data dumps are okay for initial sessions where you need to relate a lot of information, but the highest retention will come from practical application and regular and consistent involvement. That's where you get the real big gains in productivity. You know, it says watch this program because, you know, you'll get a lot more out of it. Here's the same exact slide without all the color, and that's a simple little graphic. You know, this or this, you can just see the difference. Okay? Friendly environment. Remember, training should be fun, so encourage questions, jokes, insight, participation. Treat all questions with respect, no matter how stupid. However, don't upstage yourself by answering questions that are going to come later, so you need to be in control when you're conducting any kind of training in your company. And again, I say make it fun. That's me doing training like 16 years ago in a training program. And even then I use visual aids. Look at it. Before I even had all the studies I have now that show like it's so powerful. Hot seats are killer. That's what I do with my clients. Works really, really well. Oh, this is a great example. CEO Bunt. We had a client who was trying to sell telephone systems, and we knew the CEO wouldn't look at telephone systems. We didn't want to be with the communications. Again, this is all stuff I'll be talking about later in terms of being a brilliant strategist. If they went to the telecom director in a company, the telecom director didn't have the authority to get the budget to replace a phone system. It might be 15 years old and total antique, but as long as it's working, don't fix it, right? Yet the advantages of fixing it could be significant, and yet most of them couldn't get the money. So what they really wanted to do was go to the CFO, but the CFO would bunt to the telecom director because that's the guy in charge of our telephone systems. So we deliberately went after CEOs, knowing they were going to bunt us down to the CFO. And we worked on that one and perfected it. And this is just a great example. So one of the things we did was we talked to the CEO, and I'll spare you the whole pitch, but at some point when the CEO was turning us down, we'd say, well, let me ask you a question. Do you trust the judgment of your CFO? Well, of course I trust the judgment of my CFO. Well, then do you think he would be a good person to evaluate this, you know? And we created a thing that was called the 9 ways that you waste money in your voice and data spending. It was education we gave, and we'd say, do you think the CFO? Yeah, the CFO. Yeah, in fact, he would be good. We literally worked the CEO knowing he was going to bunt us to the CFO. It was like a deliberate plan. And I worked that thing over for about 4 or 5. That's the group where I got them 10 times more appointments. They were getting 3 when I got involved. They were getting 30 when I left. Same 4 salespeople. Well, 4, some of them changed, but still only 4 salespeople. And for weeks, I harped on that one little thing, that CEO bunt is what we called it. And one of the things I had them do is when the CEO said, you know, that'd be a great idea. Why don't you see Harry? He's our CFO. It sounds like something that would be interesting. And Harry, you know, if it comes to saving money, yeah, Harry's your guy. So then I said, all right, let's send a memo now to the CEO saying, hey, as per our discussion, I'm going to go see Harry. These are the things I'm going to talk about. And I will report back to you what the process is. So I get call sheets that show what these guys did, and I'll show you some really great ones later, how you can put in, procedures to monitor and track what's going on in your organization. Really good idea, huh? And I said to the sales guy, okay, so what, this is a hot seat, what happened? I see you talked to all these CEOs, and then on the sheet it showed what activity they took afterwards, and I said, did you send the memo we sent? Oh, no, I forgot to do that. So here's what happened. The reason we did that is because we sent it to the CEO, we told him, we reiterated what was important about it, and then the CEO inevitably would write on the document, Harry, this sounded good, check it out. It was like, it was a guaranteed meeting with the CFO. And he would pass it through the inter-office memo to the CFO, who would often then call my client to set an appointment. So, we put it right in the document. And it took me like 3 weeks of harping on this team on that one little procedure to get that thing implemented, and then also beating up the owner, saying to him, what are we doing on the phone again here where you haven't implemented these? And that's how you go from 3 appointments to 30, is those little tiny details, and hot seating the people in your company to make sure they improve those little tiny things, and you get incremental improvement, and 30 appointments a week later, it had a profound impact. Test before and after, that's a really great way. If you're having training in your company, is to create tests. Before and after, little spot quizzes. I have a spot quiz in my company for every area I train the staff on. The 6 steps of time management, the 12 steps to get an appointment, the 7 steps to selling, the 6 questions we will ask every single prospect. And I had it so systematized that to this day, 10 years later, I could go back to any sales rep who worked for me and say, what are the 7 steps to every sale? And the guy would fire them right off, I guarantee you. Because I just beat them into their heads. John Wooden one of the most successful basketball coaches in history, what he would do is he would prepare for 4 hours for 1 hour of training. And who knows about Coach John Wooden? So the record, a lot of you guys. So it was like broke every record, and whether they won 17 out of 20 national championships. I mean, it was unbelievable. But he would rehearse some little, down between the legs, pass to this guy kind of a thing, a little play, and he would practice it for 4 hours of what the play was going to be with 5 of his team members, just for what would be an hour, and actually the play time was a couple of minutes. But he worked on what was going to be for 4 hours so that when they got on that basketball court, they were so awesome nobody can compete with them. Because everybody's, yeah, we practice layup shots, yeah, we practice, different kinds of things. But he would practice little plays and ways of passing, and the team was so tight and so perfect and so well structured and rehearsed. And by the way, you want to feel some pride? You get a sales team like that, that is a feeling of pride. When you know you've got the best salespeople in your industry, bar none, or you've got the best trained staff of any single person in your environment, and it's not that hard to do. But I personally participated in companies like that, and it's a fantastic feeling. So these are the manager tasks. You have to plan, you have to evaluate, you have to organize, you have to motivate, you have to recruit, you have to supervise, and you have to manage. Those are all the manager tasks. The manager resources are, you have ideas, you have the processes, you have the time. These are your resources. You have energy, you have money, you have employees, you have materials, you have equipment. Tell me which one of those things won't improve with training. Every single one of them. So it's just want to try and get you committed. Training will help your company run better, faster, smarter. Take time to sharpen your skills. The company conducting the best training will own the future. That's a guarantee. And train or be derailed. Make it fun. Master level skills come only from repetition of material. But people get bored if you teach it the same way, so try to create different ways and get them involved. Ask their opinion. It really makes a difference. Train constantly, train with enthusiasm, train in entertainment.